What if I told you that for nearly 1,000 years, what we now know as the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches were a single, unified body? So why? What could make two branches of the same faith become such bitter enemies? The answer is a story of explosive politics, a single forbidden word, and a betrayal so deep it was written in blood. This is the true story of how that unity shattered. An event so profound it's simply called the Great Schism of 1054. Today, we'll explore not just when it happened, but why, tracing the political, cultural, theological, and personal forces that tore the ancient church in two. Chapter 1. The Cracks in the Foundation. The Why. Three main causes. To understand 1054, we have to go back centuries. The roots are in the very structure of the late Roman Empire. First, the two capitals. Emperor Constantine moved the capital to Constantinople, modern Istanbul, in the 4th century. This created a new power center in the Greek-speaking East, while Rome remained the historic heart in the Latin-speaking West. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476, the Pope in Rome often stood alone as a political authority in the West. In the East, the emperor in Constantinople remained powerful, and the Patriarch of Constantinople was often seen as under the emperor's shadow, a system we call Caesaropapism. This leads to our second deep cause, cultural and linguistic drift. The West spoke Latin, read Latin theology like Augustine, and developed a legalistic, practical mind. The East spoke Greek, read Greek fathers like Gregory of Nyssa and John Chrysostom, and was more philosophical and mystical. They were slowly becoming two different worlds, praying to the same God but thinking about faith in different accents. Third, growing ecclesiastical rivalry. The Pope, as Bishop of Rome, claimed a unique authority as the successor of St. Peter. This was based on the Petrine doctrine from the Gospel of Matthew. "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." Rome saw itself as the final arbiter of faith. But in the East, they operated on a model of pentarchy, the leadership of the 5 major sees, Rome, Constantinople, Alexandria, Antioch, Jerusalem, in concert. The Patriarch of Constantinople, as head of the new Rome, saw himself as first among equals, but not under the Pope's jurisdiction. This tension between Roman supremacy and Eastern collegiality was a ticking time bomb. Chapter 2. The Fracture Widens. Theological and Political Sparks. With this foundation of mistrust, specific disputes ignited the conflict. The biggest theological firestorm was over one word, filioque. It's Latin for "and from the Son." The original Nicene Creed, defining the Trinity, stated the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father. In the 6th century, the Spanish Church, fighting a heresy, added "and from the Son," filioque, to clarify the Son's equality with the Father. This spread in the West, and by the early 11th century, Rome officially adopted it. But the East was furious. They saw this as theologically wrong. They believed it confused the persons of the Trinity and undermined the Father as the sole source, fount, of divinity. And illegally done. They argued no one had the right to change an ecumenical creed without an ecumenical council of all the Church. This wasn't just a doctrinal issue. It was about authority and tradition versus innovation. Next, the Phocian Schism. In the 9th century, a power struggle over the Patriarchate of Constantinople between Patriarch Photios and Pope Nicholas I led to mutual excommunications. It was eventually mended, but it set a nasty precedent for using excommunication as a political weapon and deepened the animosity. Then, the iconoclasm controversy. In the 8th to 9th centuries, Eastern emperors banned religious icons, images of Christ and saints, leading to their destruction. The popes in Rome strongly supported the use of icons. While this was resolved in the East, icons were restored, it showed the Pope defying the Eastern emperor on a major issue, straining relations further. Finally, the political realignment. In 800 AD, Pope Leo III crowned Charlemagne, the Frankish king, as Holy Roman Emperor. To Constantinople, this was a slap in the face. There was already one Roman emperor in Constantinople. The Pope was recognizing a rival barbarian power. It signaled where Rome's political loyalties were shifting. away from the Byzantine East and toward the rising kingdoms of Northern Europe. Chapter 3. 1054. The final break. The when and how. By the mid-11th century, the relationship was hanging by a thread. The immediate flashpoint was in southern Italy, which was under Norman invasion but had Byzantine churches. The Normans were imposing Latin rites, and the Byzantines complained to the Pope. Pope Leo IX sent a delegation led by the fiery, uncompromising Cardinal Humbert of Silva Candida to Constantinople in 1054 to negotiate with Patriarch Michael I Cerularius. It was a disaster. Cerularius was equally proud and stubborn. He had recently closed Latin Rite churches in Constantinople, accusing them of using unleavened bread, azymes, for communion, another liturgical difference. The talks broke down completely. On July 16, 1054, in a dramatic act, Humbert and his colleagues marched into the Hagia Sophia, the greatest church in Christendom, during a service. They placed a bull of excommunication on the high altar, excommunicating Patriarch Michael and his supporters. The bull condemned the East for, among other things, rejecting the filioque, allowing priests to marry, and the errors of the Greeks. It was the ultimate insult. Patriarch Michael responded in kind, excommunicating Humbert, though technically not the Pope, as Leo IX had died, making Humbert's authority questionable. The damage was done. The mutual excommunications marked the formal, irrevocable break. Chapter 4. Aftermath and Legacy. At first, many on the ground didn't notice. Trade continued, people interacted, but the schism became permanent. Later events poured cement into the crack. The most horrific was the Fourth Crusade in 1204. Instead of fighting Muslims, the Crusader army, diverted by Venetian politics, sacked the Christian city of Constantinople. They massacred fellow Christians, defiled altars, and looted relics. For the Orthodox East, this proved the West was not just in error, but was barbaric and faithless. The schism was now sealed with blood and betrayal. Attempts at reunion, like the Councils of Lyon, 1274, and Ferrara-Florence, 1438-39, failed. They were often political gambits by Byzantine emperors desperate for Western military aid against the Ottomans, and the Orthodox clergy and people rejected them. So, what were the results? 1. Two Christian civilizations, a Latin West, Catholic, centered on Rome, spreading into Europe and later the Americas, and a Greek/Slavic East, Orthodox, centered on Constantinople, spreading into Russia and the Balkans. 2. Separate paths, different theologies, liturgies, church governance, and even calendars. 3. A divided Europe. The schism created a religious and cultural fault line that persists today, influencing geopolitics, conflicts, and identities. Conclusion. An unhealed wound. The Great Schism of 1054 was not caused by one issue, but by a perfect storm. Centuries of cultural separation, political rivalry, clashes over authority, and specific theological disputes like the filioque. It was the tragic divorce of two partners who had grown apart, spoke different languages, and no longer trusted each other. In 1965, Pope Paul VI and Patriarch Athenagoras I took a historic step, mutually lifting the excommunications of 1054. It was a powerful gesture of reconciliation, but the schism itself remains. Full communion has not been restored. The Great Schism teaches us that divides are rarely simple. They are built over time, through a complex web of faith, power, culture, and human failing. It remains one of the most significant splits in religious history, shaping the face of Christianity and the world we live in today. If you found this overview helpful, please do like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments below if you want a deep dive video on the consequences of the Great Schism or another topic. Thanks for watching.